Hey everyone, in this video I want to talk about Thinline Bibles. And one of the points I want to make in this video is that they don't make them like they used to oftentimes. Now, that could be looked at as a good thing or a bad thing. It just depends on your perspective. But you'll see here I've got an older ESV Thinline that I acquired, and I wanted to show that in this video because I think some people would be interested in it. I like to see how Bibles change over the years and just even things like boxes, how they look at different time periods, different eras. So this is like your mid 2000s box from the ESV, I think. And it had a little window here to look at the Bible. It says it's a 9.5 type. Their newer ones, I think, are listed around 8 or 8.5. Very similar, though, to be honest. Just maybe a little bit different style to it, but similar in terms of readability. We'll look at that. But this is what the box looked like. The back here, I would say the boxes are probably, yeah, a little bit more clean looking now. I showed this Bible recently. They tend to look a little bit more like this, so more of a busy look, I guess I would say, in their older Bibles. So that's one difference, but when you get in here, I like how they actually had this pamphlet. You could tell they were still really advertising the ESV, really getting it out there as a translation, so they're really promoting it here in this booklet that comes with this Bible. So that's pretty cool. But what I really wanted to show as far as difference is just the size of it. Now, the height and width is kind of your typical, about 8.5 by 5.5, somewhere in that range, 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches. But honestly, as soon as I held this, it kind of occurred to me, I just don't see this much anymore. It's how thin it is. I mean, thin lines back in the day were really trying to be thin. Emphasis on that word thin in thin line. And so you really feel that with this. It's very small, but a lot of you who hold Bibles know that even a quarter of an inch is a big deal when it comes to Bibles. It does have a different feel. And certainly even an inch can make an incredibly big difference in some cases. But even a quarter of an inch, you know, with the width here. I think this is somewhere around 7/8. I think this is definitely less than an inch as I'm looking at it here. You know, almost around 3/4 of an inch. So, I mean, you know, nowadays, if a Bible's about an inch thick, it's considered a thin line. And I would say, yeah, inch is pretty thin, but 3/4 of an inch. So they made them thinner. Now, in order to make them this thin, what they really had to do was use very thin paper. And in some cases, really get the text kind of scrunched together as much as possible. So the one that's probably the least amount of pages that I have is the Nelson Signature Series NKJV. And the page count on this is quite low for a whole Bible. You're looking here at only 863 pages. That is not a lot of pages for an entire Bible. Getting to the end of this ESV here, we're looking at 1,042 pages. So this has the least amount of pages, but in order to get that low amount of page count, they had to really scrunch that text together. So one of the things that ESV did that was an improvement was to give better line spacing, better leading, they call it. And you can see this one is more readable than this. Nevertheless, the pages in both of these very thin, and so you're gonna notice some ghosting in these Bibles. It's not too bad, but back then neither of these were line matched. And honestly, ESV Bibles still in their thin line edition, their regular thin line is not line matched. But a lot of other companies that produce thin lines do have line matching. And some ESV thin lines, like the large print thin line, is line matched. Anyway, I digress. You can see here, in order to be thin, they did have to make some sacrifices. I'll show you one other one, and this being bonded leather as opposed to like this thick leather you have on this one makes it feel very thin. Same with this one here. This is genuine leather. So you got genuine leather, bonded leather, both of these very, very thin, and both from that 2000s period, late 90s to mid 2000s. Very thin Bibles. And really all three of them. And this is a thick cover on this one. So that's really the point I'm making. Thin lines used to be really thin, but the paper in them, or the printing sometimes, wasn't quite as readable. So I'm going to compare now to a modern or present day ESV thin line. And this is the Netherlands printing. It's one of the heirloom Bibles. So this is going to be their highest quality. And this one is kept pretty thin because it is the Netherlands printing. So that does help. And you can see here, this is really good quality paper. Even if that font in the newer one is considered a little bit smaller, it's hard to tell. I would say it's not too different. It's just a little different style. This is a bolder font than the older edition. But a lot of thin lines, and actually this is a 2-column verse by verse, but it kind of gives you an idea of, some thin lines, like a large print thin line might be somewhere like this, and they kind of both have a similar look and feel to them. But this one, this older thin line, it just is noticeably thinner. I mean, you're definitely talking here about one that is less than an inch thick, as I showed earlier. So they don't make them like they used to. And I thought this would be interesting to look at this older thin line. What do you think about that? Do you think thin lines are better today? Do you like that really thin feel? Or do you like something that emphasizes more readability? Overall, I would say readability to me is more important, but there is still something special about picking up a Bible and just saying, wow, that really is a thin line. So just wanted to share that with you and get your feedback. But thank you so much for taking a look at these Bibles with me from a first perspective.